Okay, good to go again.
And I've got
The
both
other issue may
windows
be
now.
if the other issue with the echo may be that whenever anyone who isn't the instructor is speaking, the instructor just needs to mute briefly.
Well, can my cohort do that for me? Because I'm trying to keep track of the class. Thank you. Okay, so this is the video. Basically, what I'm doing here is I'm sauteing the flour in butter, and then this is going to turn into a paste, much like if you're familiar with a roux, what that's like. And then I'm going to add to it, as you can see here, I'm adding a syrup into that mix. From there, I'm going to add shredded chicken breast. And if you can look to the right, you'll see on the cutting board here, a very finely shredded chicken breast. And this was basically done by putting a whole chicken into a pot and simmering it on low. So you don't want to add any flavor to it. You just want to have plain chicken breast. The recipe itself is very much like a blancmange. And Shirvani talks about using butter, 350 drachmas of rice flour. Then there is thinned out chicken, white meat, and mix all of the ingredients. Cook the preparation over slow heat while stirring constantly. Once it becomes very granulated and very thick, remove it from the heat. Take parts of it, of the paste equal to the size of an egg, and put it into a thin mold with the form of a bowl. Place these pieces into the molds, press the pasta. So basically what you're doing is you're creating a paste that then gets pressed into a mold. And at this point, we're still trying to iron out if, as you can see in this right-hand side here, I have several options for molds. And I am going to pause my share for a moment. Are you able to see me on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so here are a couple of versions of what could be potentially a mold for Memonia. We don't know it. We do know that there were mentions of molds used and given as gifts to the, I believe it was the Austrian ambassador, was given 7 of them. We don't know where they are. We don't know what they look like. Mary and I talked about this. Urta team and I talked about it. Mary suggests it might be something like an ice cream scoop, probably not with the little side doohickey here. But I tend to think that it's probably something like this. It basically is supposed to be a spoon of some sort. And from there, that was then popped out. It was either baked or it was fried or not, is the part that I took from my translation of the French version of Sherbani. So, and I'm going to stick with that. Everybody else, you can make your own conclusions. But it is quite delicious that way. And we went through many, many variations on this. Let me resume the share a little bit. And I'm going to take the video and move it along. One of the other people who has helped us trouble it. So there I am bragging on Urta team again. Because she has really contributed so much to us to be able to play. They're actually necessary because it's not that hot. My hands are clean, so I'm just going to go for it. So here you see me forming them. Could be one of the things that Shirvani is talking about. Ursa team was kind enough. Is she on? Looks like she was going to make it today. I don't know if she she did. She is in California. So if you're on Urta team, thank you so much, my dear. We've been having fun going back and forth and talking about all of this. So I'm going to put this here. I'm going to put this here. And I'm going to pop that in the oven in a minute. So I'm going to stop the video there. I can't actually get to my controls because it's buried underneath the bar. Basically, from there, I put these into the oven. You can see over here on the right-hand side in this tray, in the very corner, you see a small bowl that I used to form the domes, because that is actually how they're described, as domes of this cookie sort of confection-like pastry thing. And so I used ceramic mold because I guess the word that's used to describe it, kipchi, I may be saying that wrong, I'm not a linguist, actually means like a ceramic bowl. So I tried to invent very many different versions. I probably did 4 or 5 trials of this recipe. And basically, I'm comfortable now making it as a confection, not rebaking it after it's been cooked the first time. I let it cool, shape it into the molds. I really, really like this one here. Let me stop my screen share. I really like this one here for the purpose. It just comes out lovely. It's a perfect size, this one right here. And this is metal. This is not wood or ceramic, but it's an option that we have. So I am going to stop that share, and we're going to talk a little bit about the recipe. So there are a couple different versions. One has chicken in it. One does not have chicken in it. I think there might be a third one. I will be happy to share my recipe with you when people send me their email addresses. So basically you have honey, butter, flour, rice flour. Then you have rose water, milk, the chicken, ground almonds. I did opt out of using that so that I had a nut-free option for people. And then you're going to dust them in ground sugar. And honestly, I have not been able to get sugar to grind fine enough that it adheres like confectioner's sugar. But if you do use confectioner's or what's called icing sugar, I know it has cornstarch in it. It's okay. But it looks beautiful. So when you have this design on your confection, it just looks so cool. It looks so pretty, and I suggest that you wait and do it right before you serve, and that way the white stands out. Then there is some musk in this recipe, which Urta team was talking about in her class. And what I want to say about that is that she also shared with me where to find musk and the perfumery that she shared with me. I actually bought a box of musk. So I have a ton of little bottles of musk. If anybody wants it, just reach out to me and I will send it to you, and you just cover the cost and the postage. But I've been doing this because I want to promote people to use it. I think we need to experience this. For so many years, I mean, literally 3 decades, I've been saying I can't use musk because it's from an endangered animal, that I can't get a hold of the stuff, and too price. No, it's not bad. I mean, this bottle, you're not going to go through this in a year, maybe 2 years. You know, you don't use a lot of it. Now, what I did do was I also bought musk. You can see this microgram. Okay, this is actually musk from the Middle East. This was $37, right? When you look at this, no, you're right. You can't afford to use this. This is 10 bucks. You can afford to use this. So let's use it. Let's start putting it into the food and getting familiar with it on how it works. At one time, we were all afraid of using mastic. Now we've gotten, I think most of us have gotten over that. Oh, I saw Galafrida said his wife has made a starch-free confectioner sugar. Super cool. I do want to know about that because it just looks so much better than the larger grind that I just can't seem to get there. So anyhow, I wanted you to know that this resource is available to you. If you want to reach out to me, I can set you up with some. And that's my whole purpose in life, is to enable people. So the main recipe we're going to actually recreate today is, I'm just checking on my time, it's 6:45, so we're doing well, is the Shekelborak. So the Shekelborak is a pastry. The dough is made with flour, milk, yeast, which I didn't see a lot of that in a lot of the pastry recipes. So this was one that was a lot of fun to play with. And basically what I do is I melt my butter, which seems to have solidified again. So I'm going to have to melt that in microwave. And then I add to it the milk, the yeast, and a little bit of salt and some sugar, and set it aside. Now I have prepared a dough for us to play with, and I'll share that with you in just a moment. This is a beautiful dough. So one of the main ingredients in this, a period microwave, that would be the sun, is saffron. Now, I'm not a wimp about saffron, and I think Urta team and I agree on that. Would I not? Would I be right on that, Urta team?
Absolutely.
I know that His Grace Caryadok has an aversion to saffron. That's okay. We all have an aversion to something. But in this case, I think that to just go for it and to really revel in the saffron flavor makes this such a beautiful recipe. So I'm going to actually pin my countertop so that you can see what I'm doing here. And I'm going to start working on the recipe, and we can keep chatting while we go. Leaves more saffron for me? Yeah, exactly. Saffron is such a beautiful thing. So I'm going to put my yeast in here. This is just regular Fleischmann's yeast, nothing fancy, nothing to write home about, just the regular stuff. I'm going to pour my warmed milk into this. I'm going to put in about a teaspoon of salt. I'm going to put in a couple of teaspoons of sugar, and I'm going to give that a stir. And then I'm going to add my saffron, which is quite generous. So I said a 1/4 teaspoon ground, like not a 1/4 teaspoon before grinding, a 1/4 teaspoon ground, which is a lot. And I know that's expensive, but really you want to get the most out of this recipe, and the flavor is astonishing. So I always go back and put a little bit of liquid into my my mortar, my pestle, my mortar, whatever, and make sure that I get all that goodness out of there, because that's liquid gold. The cost of it is unreal. So we just stir this up and let it set aside until it starts to bloom, and then we're going to add it to our flour. So the recipe itself, let me read it to you, is quite lovely. I'm going to read you Shirvani's version. The art of preparing the sweet burek is the following. Ground almonds, crush them in a mortar, knead them on a pastry board with a roller, crush the sugar but not too much. Take the same quantity of almonds and of sugar, but it is better if the quantity of sugar is superior. Mix 2 parts of mutton tail grease with 1 part of good sweet butter. In this case, I'm using butter entirely because of the cost and to find the mutton tail grease, although I do have some. It's in my freezer. I'm saving it for a very special Yeah, sheep tail fat, sorry. I'm reading it from here, but that's what it means. From the Ketakul lamb is where I got mine. Um, add some water to make a pasta, add more or less salt, verify the taste because it must not be too salty. It would be better if some yeast is added. So that's where I do my, I didn't um, uh, I set up my yeast to bloom first, just the way I do it. So you guys can do it your own way if you want to follow the steps like I have it written. I assume that whoever's copying this down probably isn't a cook. So they don't know that they should probably prime that yeast before they put it into the dough. So I'm taking that step for them. But with or without saffron, extend the pasta, cut it in pieces, and make discs with the roller. Cover them all over with the sugar and the almonds, and draw some designs on the top of the disc with a pointed piece of iron. Then put some in a frying pan with butter to cook in an oven. When they are cooked, remove them from the oven, sprinkle them with sugar and rose water, and eat them. Use approximately 2 I read these words, but I cannot say them because I don't say them out loud. Measurements of sugar, 1 measurement and a half of almonds, and also 1 measure and a half of butter. Don't cook them too much or they might burn. Cook them until the tops become golden. So taking that recipe, I'm going to create the dough, which I have right here. It's just starting to bloom for me, and I'm going to show it to you, and then I'm going to set it aside, and I'm going to actually do the marzipan filling. So this is really coming along, and I just realized I put golden yellow dough on a yellow cutting board. That was really dumb, because I can't really show you the gorgeous flecks that are in this. I'm going to hold up a piece and see if you all can see this a little bit better, but it's really coming along quite nicely, and even within it there's still some little flecks of saffron, and it's just starting to double up now, so I'm getting happy. The yeast is getting happier.
Are we supposed to be able to see your counter? Because we can't see the counter.
I'm sorry, hold on a second. I'm having trouble hearing you. You're breaking up.
We can't see your counter is what she's trying to say.
Okay, so what interesting. Let's see if it needs to be repinned. Cohort, are you able to pin?
It's pinned on this side.
That one there?
Both of them.
Can you see that one now? Can you see the table, the countertop?
I can see both you and the tabletop.
Oh, sweet. All right, so both of us got there.
If somebody can't see it, she's here under her husband's name, and the countertop is showing under the name Shannon Blue. So scroll through the people at the top or where pictures are, and then see it.
So good. I'm glad we're all back on the same page here. So basically what you're doing is creating this dough. You are then creating a marzipan. You're going to fill the circles of dough with marzipan. You're folding it over, you're sealing it, you're brushing it with butter, and you're baking it. I think you can also pan fry it. Kavurma is, I think, like a pan fry. But I bake it because I can, and I will. So I have simplified the process of making the marzipan by using ground almond flour. I know that's not exactly it. I've made marzipan in the past. I've skinned my own almonds, gone from scratch. I don't feel the need to prove myself with that. So I'm simplifying it to some extent, but you are free to do that yourself. So what I've done is take equal parts, in this case. I know that he says more sugar than flour, or almonds, but I'm using equal parts by weight of sugar and almond. And I ground this sugar in addition to starting with granulated sugar because I wanted it to blend a little bit better. So I will mix this first. And then the main thing I add to it to turn it into marzipan is rose water. And I do use a lot of rose water. But this is a kind that is very mild. It's not the concentrated version. If you're using the concentrated version and you know it when you have it, because it tastes like, you know, licking your grandmother's perfume bottle. This stuff is very light in flavor, at least in my experience. So I use this strictly instead of using water. So I'm blending this together so that I get the sugar and the almonds mixed. And then I'm going to add rose water. Now, I think in my recipe, I have about a quarter cup. I put a lot of rose water in there. People are like, oh my God, there's rose water in there. Yes, there is. And just do it until it comes together. Now, I'm also going to add musk. And I'm probably going to add a little more than maybe some other people will. But again, this is where no measurements were provided. So use your own creativity. Get familiar with using musk so that you feel confident about creating a dish with it. Like, don't apologize, you know? I'm done apologizing for using it. This one here is Sadaf, and I believe that the brand of rose water, that's what this is. It's available throughout the United States. I've used a couple different kinds, and the ones that are super concentrated are typically in the little tiny bottles. And this one is not. So you can see how this is coming together. Okay. Now I'm going to add some musk. And I'm going to pour it in here first. I have about, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon. And that's plenty, like plenty, probably more than most people would use. But what it does is really elevate the flavors underneath it. I find it does very similar action that what mastic does. It provides this, I don't know how to explain it. It's like a underpining. And you don't get that super perfumey upfront flavor or smell. But when you like musk, like I've actually stuck this in my finger, put it in my mouth, it will make my mouth sort of numb. Kind of like oil of clove will. And it smells like perfume. I mean, it does. It really does smell like perfume. I think Urta Team shares a story about somebody that she knew who had inherited a piece of musk. Is that right, Urta Team?
Yes, a musk lamb that had belonged to her grandmother.
So that's, you know, that's super cool. Like, I've heard of people inheriting their grandmother's spices, like, you know, pumpkin pie spice mix. I used to teach a lot of classes for the public, and I used to have people, I would say, how many people here have a spice jar that their mother or grandmother gave them that they've had? And you wouldn't believe how many people would put their hands up. It was like, oh my God, you've been using 30-year-old spice pie spice mix? And they're like, yep. So then I show them what freshly ground spices smell like, and they're like, what? Mind blown.
However, musk is different.
What's that?
Musk is different, and the flavor remains.
Musk is different with the what?
The flavor remains.
Ah, okay, yes. So basically this is ready now. It holds together, that's what I'm looking for, because I want it to be marzipan-like. Now, when you let it sit overnight, it does firm up. So it becomes much more marzipan-like that we are familiar with. So you can see this is, it's moldable. You can make little shapes out of it if you wanted to. So if you're looking for an easy peasy marzipan that's really inexpensive, I might have ground the almonds a little, or not the almonds, the sugar a little bit better next time. But anyway, so there it is converted. Let me rinse my hands off. And what we're going to do is roll out a little bit of it, and I'm just going to show you the technique. It's very simple, just like you would with almost anything else. Oh, wait a minute. Here's what I forgot to tell you. My secret ingredient in my marzipan is salt. I put about a teaspoon of salt into my marzipan. Man, does that make the flavor just pop. I know it's not called for. I don't care. I'm doing it. Call me a rebel, rule breaker, whatever. I like it. Cook's discretion. So I blend that in there. And that actually happened by accident once because there was something I went to put in, and then I realized I'd thrown salt in. And I tasted it afterwards like, oh my God, that's so much better. So, and I'm also making this recipe today because I'm going to be doing some commercial sales of marzipan and pastries for a restaurant. So I love this recipe, and I gave this to my clients. Right now I am a insurance advisor, and my top clients all got a half a dozen Shekelborak mailed to them at Christmas time. So they were pretty happy. So before we move forward, I want to show you all. This is the yeast concoction. It's really getting happy. I put, basically there's 1.5 cups of milk in here, and then 1 stick of butter, which is a half a cup. So 2 cups, but if I let this go for another half hour or so, it'll come all the way up to the top. I made the mistake the first time I did this and put it in a 1-pint jar, and it literally looked like the blob had completely like exploded. Oh, somebody just wrote, artificial vanilla was made from beaver glands. There you go. Muskrat glands, oh my God. I have no idea. It could. I've actually eaten muskrat, but I never thought of using it for a substitute for deer musk. So here's my flour. I'm going to pour this in. Now this dough freezes very well. So you can make this in advance and freeze it or refrigerate it. It does very, very well. And then what I suggest you do is make sure that you take it out and you let it come to room temperature and then let it proof again, so that you get a nice risen dough. Because if you bake it, before it's risen for the second time, it tends to taste real yeasty, and that's not nice. I don't like it. So I advise against it. So here we go. This is a very soft dough. And then I'm going to knead it a little bit, and it will be a bit raggedy, but that's okay. It'll come together very smoothly when we let it rest. And I'm very happy with this dough, with the recipe. I've made it several times. You all can, play with it yourselves. I don't necessarily, get all of the flour worked in, but probably the majority of it. As you can see, it's starting to smooth out a little bit. I like this dough. The flavor is incredible. I think that saffron that just really elevates this recipe. It makes it sexy. It really makes it gourmet, and I just love to share that with people modernly. When we talk about medieval food, you all know what comes to their mind. I don't have to tell you. They're thinking, hunks of meat and very unelegant food, and that is so far from the truth. So this is really coming along nicely. I'm going to let this rest, and I'm going to cover it up and set it aside. And then I'll probably freeze this because I'm not going to have time to make all of this in the next day. Tomorrow I'm teaching a class on baklava, for those of you who want to join. For many years, people believed that baklava was not a period dish, and that is not the case. We know that it was made and served. There are descriptions of women being hired as yufkachi, who would come to the palace and actually roll out the dough, roll out the yufka. So Yufka and Filo are pretty different. Yufka includes eggs and fat, and quite often Filo does not. Different recipes are done differently. Modernly, it's very different as well. So this dough, oh man, I wish you all could smell it, but you can see this. It's a beautiful butter yellow, and there are little flecks. You probably can't see that. Little flecks of gold, like right there. Look at that. Oh man, little nugget of gold right there. I love it. So what I'm going to do is show you something right now. Now these are Turkish rolling pins used for making yufka, and you could use one of these. This is one I brought back from Turkey. It's made from lemon wood. It's very pretty, but that's about it because it's really not functional because you can see it kind of yeah, we'll be recording it. Don't worry. It's uneven. It's not flat. So I went out and I bought dowel, which actually is flat and is much more effective at rolling things out. And this is what's used in the technique that baklava requires, or a yufka requires. So I'm going to cut this dough up. Let's see, it was supposed to do 50 pieces, but I'm going to do 12. Let's see. These are going to be a little bigger than normal. That's okay. Let me get something to put over top of my dough. So you can use a regular sized rolling pin, or you can use, these are going to be, they'll be fine. You don't have to use the little tiny oka, by the way, which means arrow, and that's possibly one of the origins of baklava. There's many that it could be. Yeah, these are going to be ginormous for our purposes, but you know, that's okay. I'll give these away. I'm not going to do a whole ton of them because what I want to do is have us talk about sources. It's now 10 after 7 my time, but I do want to bake like a half a dozen of them so that you can see them. Yeah, that's like going to be a ginormous burek. But it is so soft. So I like to describe it that if you feel your ear, you know, you got a little bit of firmness, but a little bit of give there on the surface. That's what you're looking at. And this is very pliable when you let it rest. And I mean, you really do have to let it rest. You can't just go straight with this dough. This is way too big. I have to. Oh my goodness. All right, we're just going to make a ginormous one to start with. I am going to spread some butter on my pan. Here's a little trick. I don't know where I learned this, but take your butter wrapper and use it to butter your pans before you throw it out.
Yes, I learned that from my mother.
Yeah. Yeah, my grandmother taught me that, and I jokingly say she could feed a family of 4 on what she could scrape out of the inside of a tin can. I mean, she was just amazingly good at stretching things out. So this is not going to be enough for this one. I'm going to use that much. That's just ginormous. This is an enormous pastry. And then you fold it over. You're making a crescent. And then they do talk about a tool. Now, what I like to do is roll this edge to make it nice and neat. Kind of like a fluted rope a little bit. And then I do like to press. Oh, come on, it's not holding. Of course, it's because everybody's watching me. Now, there's no egg in this dough. And then, oh, looks like I'm going to have to, boy, my house must be cold. My butter keeps getting too cold. So I'm going to brush this with butter, and then I'm going to put it on the tray. I'm going to do a couple more. Does anybody have any questions? We could chat while I do this. I'm looking at, oh, butter wrapper is a mom trick, waste not, want not. My culinary school instructor had a cow when you, really? Tell me about that. I got to hear that. I mean, that's ridiculous. Obviously, he was a French trained chef.
No, actually, all of my instructors were female.
Okay, she was a French trained chef?
No, she was a self-taught catering kind of person.
That surprises me that she would get bent out of shape about using a butter wrapper. Why did she say that? What, did she give you a reason?
No, but she liked to rag on me.
Oh, well, you know, there is that. Some people just like to have something to bitch about, you know? I mean, sometimes I just wonder what people do for a living besides complain. But we're going to make some smaller ones here. And I am going to rip these apart in half so that we get a smaller result, because those are just way too big. And I think I even said like a tablespoon, so I was just getting overly excited. So here we go. I'm going to place this on my tray, and we'll do a couple more, and then I'll brush them all with butter at the same time, just so that I'm not wasting my time going back and forth. So I would love to hear from other people. Have any of you worked with any of these recipes? What has been your experience? Anyone? Crickets? Cool. Then that means that I'm bringing you something new, I guess.
I make mine rather differently.
Sorry, what was that?
I make mine rather differently.
The last word disappeared.
Differently.
Differently. Okay, well, tell me, how did you make yours differently? Urtatim, because you have, I'm assuming that was Urtatim.
It was.
Okay, how do you make yours?
Well, I use pastry flour.
Mm-hmm. Why?
More tender.
You think so?
Oh, definitely. It's less. There's less gluten in it.
Do you think that that's appropriate to the period? Like, tell me your thought process there.
Based on something in the recipe, I made that decision.
Okay. What? Do you recall what that was? I'm curious.
I'm trying to find it. Then I put yeast in it, but I do not knead it.
Okay.
And it came out incredibly light
Mm-hmm.
and delicate and flaky.
If you mute your second camera, there won't be echo.
My second camera doesn't have any sound at all. One is completely.
It's not you. I think it's Urtatin that because
Yeah, when a second person talks, if two people are talking at the same time, they have to mute me. Sorry. It is what it is. Let me know if you pick up on what that was, Urtatim.
It wasn't in the recipe, It was in something else that was written about the Helvahana and the pastries.
I'm late to the party. What were the recipes you're doing?
The one I'm working on right now is called Shekelborak, which means sweet borak. So for those of you who are familiar with Middle Eastern food, borak or boreg or parag is another one, is a filled dough. And sometimes that's with meat, and in this case, it's with a marzipan filling, originating from a set of recipes that probably were created or at least written down around 1430, according to Ertatim, who's the person who translated the document. And it's a very simple recipe. It's a saffron dough with just flour, butter. So it's a fortified dough. A little bit of sugar.
To answer your earlier question, I have not done anything like this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool.
I've done
I love it.
but not what you're describing.
I hope that you all will consider creating some of these recipes in your next Ottoman feast. What we're talking about here today are beyond baklava. Tomorrow will be the baklava class, where I'll be showing you the technique, how to roll the yufka so that it is paper thin. And we'll go through the recipe, the source, the ingredients, how to do it. Although I'm going to tell you right now, I am by no means an expert in creating yufka. I do have some video of some ladies who make it look like child's play, and they've probably been doing it since they were 4 or 5 maybe. So I am just a lame beginner, but it's still fun.
One other thing. Were you supposed to have 2 cameras on? One for you and one for... We only can see your smiling face.
Oh, for goodness sake. Well, isn't that... how's that? You guys have to let me know, man. I can't see what's going on.
Yep, that's back now.
Yay. All right, well, I'm still doing a couple of these little morsels of dough here, so we'll
I'll go
continue
back to
to
being quiet. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you for pointing it out. I can't tell what you guys are seeing, so without your input, I'm kind of flying blind.
I think some of us can see stuff and others of us can't. I'm being the I can't see anything other than you.
Okay, so you're not seeing the surface of my
Nope, haven't seen it at all for the duration.
If you look for Shannon Mondu in the view and then click on it, you should be able to see.
Okay, so go to what, participants or?
Yep, go to your participant bar and look for Shannon Mondu, CHANNON.
Okay, there we go.
That's the
there it
curse
is.
that my grandmother gave me, my grandfather and grandmother. So my name is Shannon, spelt with a C. And when I was working professionally as a chef, someone said, "Oh, you just did that so that your name was like Chef Shannon with CHCH because you thought that was really cool." Like, no, actually, that's not right. I was born named that way, and that's how it was spelled. I had an Irish grandfather and a French grandmother, and he insisted on my name being Shannon. She insisted on it having some kind of French influence, and hence the Shannon as in Charlemagne. That's how I end up with that. So it's a good conversation starter, and does result in some. At one time, I had kids in my class who called me Cannon, Channon. Kids are kids. But it is Shannon. So, all right. So now I'm going to, and this just feels lovely. So I want to show you something really quickly here. This is a way that, I don't know if all of you are going to be able to see this class tomorrow, and we've got some time. So this is wheat starch, and so one of the ways that people roll out multiple things of dough to get larger is they will take them and they will layer them. I'm just going to do a few to show you. And tomorrow we'll be using a lot of this wheat starch because it allows you to get the thin, super thin yufka. So this is the Turkish rolling pin. Well, I don't know if it's Turkish, but so you see how I layered all of those? Then they take it and they roll it like this, and then they roll it out again and again and again and again. And then they will get this bigger and bigger. It'll be as big as this. And paper thin. And they just keep doing that over and over again. And then they will also flip it like this. This is what I mean that I am. And then they will roll it back. And I got to make sure I have enough starch on here. And do that again, the other direction. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But yet, now if I did this right, see what I mean? Okay, the last one I didn't do right. This is where you got to make sure you put enough. So you can see, for those of you who are looking at this top view, we're getting close to the point where you can see right through this.
Yeah.
So this will become paper thin. And that's the technique that you use to make yufka for baklava. And I have some great footage of a lady in Azerbaijan. And as Urtatin was talking earlier, if you were, I know some of you weren't here at the very beginning, but the manuscript itself, Shirvani manuscript, was written in Shirvan, which is a part of Azerbaijan now. So it's super cool that we can get footage of Azerbaijani women making yufka, and actually she's making baklava, and she's doing it, I swear to God, identical to how I believe the period recipe that I have, well, it's as close to period as we're going to get for an actual recipe, was done. So I'm going to save this and let me play with this tomorrow. But baklava made with yufka is very different than that made with filo. Because filo is very dry and yufka is not. So let's just roll these, or actually fill these. Does anybody have any questions while I'm sitting here playing with Play-Doh?
I was just thinking about your description of learning how to, of watching people who've been doing this all their lives do it, and how they make it look so easy.
Yeah.
I had the same experience with learning how to make how to roll my own couscous.
Oh, I remember when we did that class. Was that at Pennsic a couple years ago?
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
I loved that class. We loved it. I enjoyed that so much. That was so much fun. Thank you for teaching that class.
Yeah, I'm sure you had the same experience with this. You feel like you're in a lineage.
Yeah.
going all the way back to grandmothers with their young children helping them.
Absolutely. It is a, it's something that we take for granted when we buy a box of couscous. Man, I remember the amount of work that went into making that couscous. Like that was huge. It was a huge amount of work. But
the result's wonderful.
It is wonderful. It was so fluffy. It was so light and fluffy. And and of course people need to also then realize, and you don't have to worry too much about pushing the marzipan down, because when you bake, it's going to flatten out. It's going to fill. Okay? So you don't have to worry about making the shape of your marzipan be exactly the same as the pastry, because it will do that for you. It levels it up, self-levels, basically, kind of like mastic. So yeah, and when people make couscous, they really need to steam it. They really need to make the effort to either get or make a steamer. And what I did was I just took this sieve and I put this over a bowl, over a pot that had the hot water in it. And I put my couscous in the top. First, I soaked it for a little bit so that it was a bit fluffier and a little bit bigger. And then I put it in here, and then I put my, literally put the regular lid of my pot over top of it. It made the most amazing couscous, because you put salt in the water. You can also put seasoning in the water if you want to flavor it. Have you ever done that, Galafridas?
Oh yeah, well that's the way it's supposed to be done. You're
Right.
cooking a stew in the bottom
most people
pot.
don't.
But yeah, you put something aromatic in the water in the bottom, so that the aromas bind to the couscous. So you end up with a scented couscous that you can't get any other way.
Yeah,
the thing that I tell people with the chemistry background is you have created a chromatography column. And this is the packing. The couscous is the packing for the chromatography column, and it's binding to the couscous. So you just get all these flavors and smells that you're just not going to get any other way.
Exactly.
You can use the exact same spices in the broth, and it just won't go into the couscous.
Your overhead camera died again.
Oh, I don't know what happened. Dang.
It's working. It's just if you had it pinned, you have to go re-find it.
Oh, can you guys see it?
Yep.
Your camera was working.
My camera was working. All right.
But now you've got a panel in the middle.
There we go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The not having a camera crew sucks. Oh, I need 40 people to teach a class. I'm just so difficult. I always got to be special somehow. And have two cameras. I just think it does help if you can see it being done, and then also see the person talking. And I can't just keep switching back and forth. There's not enough of me to go around in that regard. Lots of other ways there's lots of me to go around. So you all are probably getting ready to come out of the hibernation that has been the pandemic. I'm hoping soon I get my second COVID shot, Pfizer shot next week. And I look forward to it. So that I can maybe have a life again. So I'm going to put this on here, and I am going to, like they actually mentioned in the recipe, the original recipe, that they mark it. I don't know what exactly all that means. I'm going to assume that it probably means they've done what I did. Maybe they'd cut it across the top like you might on pastries. breads, things like that. But, oh wow, this is really coming along. So here's my second one. It's really coming up. I'm going to pop this in the freezer because I'm not going to be using this dough. And then it'll come out and then I'll be able to use it, let it come to room temperature, and then let it have a second rising. So I'm brushing it with butter. This one's a big one. And they specifically say butter, not clarified butter. You'll see in a lot of recipes, they do ask you to use clarified butter. And of course, the difference being there's no milk fat in it. Or no milk, yeah, no milk in it. There's just the fat. And it's super easy to make clarified butter. I heat mine on the stove. I've seen people who said just bring it to a boil and let it cool. I don't know. I've never trusted that. Okay. So, I'm going to pop this in the oven for about 15 minutes. And while that's baking, I would like to talk about the source material and see if I can help you all get a leg up if you haven't done this before on finding those options and talking a little bit more about where that's going to be available. So let me get this off of my countertop so I don't get a ton of flour in my cookbooks, although as you can imagine, most of my cookbooks have been splattered and messed with food. So the first cookbook I ever worked with in the Middle Eastern genre was this, the Medieval Arab Cookbook, which has a collection of many different sources. It has several authors, including A.J. Arbery and Charles Perry, Maxime Rodinson, and as you can see, and I have removed a lot of the sticky tabs that I've used in the past already. But this book is literally a Bible for anybody who wants to become familiar with the food of medieval Middle East. And I strongly urge you, if you can, to find a copy of it. I have had this for, gosh, I don't know, 25 years. Gateway drug book, yes, absolutely. Entry drug, yeah, this book really is. I mean, you will be just addicted to the stuff in here. The title is Medieval Arab Cookery, Essays and Translations by Maxime Rodinson, A.J. Arbery, and Charles Perry. This is in my my notes, so you will get this if you get the if you send me your email address and ask for the notes on my class today.
Has come down again recently. It was going for about $2.50 for a while. I was able
to
get
how much
for $2.50.
Oh my God! I think I paid $35 for this.
Yeah, I think I was able to get my copy for about $50 in the last 6 months. So.
Wow. Okay. Well, you know what? There you go. You could never get $90 for this book right now because it's I mean, I've beaten the snot out of this thing. It is completely. That's date that's smeared all over the front of it. There's a coffee stain from a coffee cup, like this, my Turkish coffee cup I did on top. Here's a fun thing. Okay, I'm just going to get out with you guys. To Shannon, signed over hummus and belly dance. 8/3/2007, Charles Perry. We had dinner together and he's so cool. I know, I think Urta team knows him too. He is a neat guy. Former Los Angeles food writer, and he is a enormous linguist and food historian, and translated a bunch of stuff. And he actually signed this too. To Shannon, You Know My Errors, Charles Perry, August 2007. So this is the Baghdad Cookery book, which was the precursor to the Shirvani manuscript. Yeah, he's done a lot of great articles. You'll see in several of my my references, Charles Perry comes up. So this book, I do suggest that you get it. It is a little Bible. I think it's really inexpensive and it's very well done.
He went back to the original manuscript because Arbery made many mistakes.
So in this book,
to translate Arabic books, so Arbery had some excuses there.
Yep. So in this book, there is a version of the Baghdad cookery book, but then Charles Perry went back and he redid it himself because, as Urtatine points out, there were some boo-boos. This is a copy of Marianne Yerasimos's, maybe I'm saying it wrong, book. She is the daughter of Stéphane Yerasimos, who put together the Grand Table de à la Table de Grand Art. So his daughter then went ahead and she wrote a book using his research and I think some of his work, and I think she's respectable in herself as well. But this was also a very fun book to work with. I think it's my gateway to Turkish food. And then I got this and then eventually found the Shirvani manuscript and actually started working closer with them. So I think there's some stuff in here that I didn't agree with, but I don't remember exactly what it was. I would have to look recipe by recipe again.
Very few of her recipes are authentic period recipes. What she does is take recipes from several centuries and then mix them together using the ingredients.
Yeah, I think there were some that was kind of like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I ain't picking up what you're laying down, if you know what I mean. There was just some stuff that, but it's a pretty book and it's interesting. And I think it has merit. I think it was worthwhile buying if you can get it. And then comes the someone who has become a mentor for me. She's become a friend of mine, and Urtatine knows her very well as well, and she has supported many of us in the field of trying to recreate Ottoman cuisine, and that's Mary Ishen. Mary Ishen has written several books. She is a translator. She is a British expat living in Istanbul. She's married to a Turk, probably been there for 40 years, 30 years. And
been there since 1970.
She's been there since 1970. So I met Mary for the first time in person in like 2009, and I know Urtatine has met her in person as well. And she was just so kind and generous, and I had put together a series of recipes that were culminated into an ebook on Ottoman cuisine. So the way I got here was that I'm a master cook. For those of you who aren't familiar with me as a background, my current SEA name is Zubayda Khalij Lukari bint Abd al-Qadir, Andalcraig Hanamawali. So I'm the Baroness of the region of Andalcraig in southwest Michigan. But prior to that, I was known as Hoviette d'Anjou. And I was creating a coronation feast for Felix and Madalena, I think the second. I think they're at 5 now. So it's a while ago. I'm sorry, what?
3.
It's not 3.
Yes.
I think they're on their 4th year.
No. They just left Swordcliff for Ohio. So this is their 3rd reign. If you count it as one reign, I guess you could say 4 if you're counting the fact that they've been on the throne since last June.
Yeah, they're in their 2nd. I guess they didn't get redone, but it's basically 4 years. So when they were number 2, they asked me if I would do a feast based on her persona. And that's where I launched into researching and starting the path of getting really familiar with Ottoman in particular.
Janet?
Yep, that's it. That's my ebook. So, and a friend of mine hates that title. She's like, Celebration at the Sarayu. What the hell? That is so obnoxious. Don't try to buy it. Don't try to buy it, please. It's not, my book is not, oh, in my overhead is dying here. So let me unpin it. The ebook right now is not working. There's something wrong with the files, and so don't try to buy it. My publisher, I'm so not happy right now, but anyway, that was created. There are some things that are not right with it. They're not perfect, but for being 2007 when I put it together, I think I did pretty good, not having any guidelines, and nobody really before me. Urtatine was doing it on the West Coast, but no one here in Mid-Realm. So anyhow, I was asked to come to Turkey as a guest to the Turkish Cultural Foundation, and oh, that didn't help. Oh, yeah, let's make it worse. And long and short of it is, I went to Istanbul. I actually went to Turkey and spent 3 weeks traveling with them. And I got to meet Mary Ishen, and she was just so incredibly kind and generous. And I gave her a copy of my ebook, and she came back to me afterwards and she said, Shannon, wow. Like, she was so happy to see it recreated in the way she envisions it. And she's a food historian. And her and I are talking about some other projects, but right now, what I want to do is I want to throw some love on Mary Ishen. If any of you get a chance to get any of her work, I guarantee you will be thrilled. She is very, very meticulous. Although recently, I actually helped her, pushed her farther, and she picked up on something. We'll talk about that on the baklava class tomorrow, about the baklava alawi, alai. Again, language, not my first. Anyhow, she has written several books. Now, this is a page proof that she gave me for me to use and to learn. And so this is called The Bountiful Empire. This is really a book about Ottoman cuisine, and not just the Shirvani manuscript. There's many, many other sources and time periods that she touches base on. Because the Ottoman Empire, of course, ran from the time of Mehmet the Conqueror to, or even before him, his father, to 1922, or is it 22 that Ataturk, or is it 26?
22.
22. So, there's a very long span of time there that Ottoman was really a thing. And it's very interesting because when you go to Turkey and you talk to some chefs, they don't believe there's such a thing as Ottoman cuisine. Some of them really don't. They think, oh no, it's regional, it's this, it's that. And I sat down at a restaurant called Chia in Istanbul with the chef. I forget how to pronounce his name. And through an interpreter, he and I spent 2 hours going back and forth discussing whether or not there really was such a thing as Ottoman cuisine. And after explaining to him how I saw it, that the food at the palace, specifically Istanbul, in the palace setting, that was really Ottoman cuisine. He finally, at the end of dinner, he said, I'll give it to you. I agree. But it was like 2 hours of arguing with him.
Bountiful Empire is the single best book on the history of Ottoman cuisine.
It is amazing. Highly, highly, highly recommended.
A whole lot of ones, and if they're Turkish and they teach in the Turkish university, then they have to say certain things that are not necessarily historically accurate.
Yeah, Turks want to hold on to some ideas, just like modern Americans and other people from other cultures. They have decided the way something is going to be made, and they retroactively shove that square block into a round hole because they want it to be that way. And so I think one of the advantages for us, not for me anyway, not being Turkish by nature, is that I look at the recipe with fresh eyes. I'm not pre-programmed to expect how it's going to be made. And that has, I think, given me a much more authentic, in some ways, hate to say it, take on those purely, period, recipes, because I'm not trying to make it the way my grandmother made it or the way my mother made it or the way I've made it. I'm making it the way they're telling me to make it as much as possible. Obviously, I make some adjustments for modern conveniences and stuff. So the next book I want you to get from her is Sherbet and Spice. This is the Turkish version of that book. I can't read a damn word of it. No, I can read some of it. I'm not totally unable to read it, but it's very difficult. So she sent me this one. Actually, I think she sent me this one too. No, I bought this one. Amazing book on sweets. There is so much information in here. You can't, how much did I pay for it? $28. You cannot, this is gold. Okay, this book is gold. And there's my timer going off. Hold on.
Do not get Bountiful Empire thinking there's recipes in it, because there aren't. It's a history. Sherbet and Spice has recipes.
Yeah. Sherbet and Spice does have recipes. The other one is purely research, but you're going to love it. I can tell you right now, you're going to love it.
I love it. I support it.
Now, Urta team, we don't want to hear about your private life. No. I like to brush mine again with a little bit of butter, just because the powdered sugar or the sugar that I did. Now this one really popped up. Yeah, it doesn't seem to. I like to do it when they're hot, and usually I put the sugar in a bag, and then I toss. Oh, I broke one. Oh, see, it was so nice and fluffy that I broke it. Look, see that one? I broke it. So, let's put these like this. And then, there you go. These are just delightful. Once you've made this once, you're going to be like, I am making that all the time. You may tweak the recipe, and that's okay. I have no problem with that. I want you to tweak it, actually. I want you to become, free to do something a little bit different. Think through it a little bit differently. I hope I'm just highlighting this stuff so that you fall in love with it the way I do. And these are just so delicious. I made them a little fast and they're really not consistent. That's not, when I go to sell these, I'm going to have to weigh out the dough and make them all look the same, because you know how people are. People don't want those ugly tomatoes, even though they taste good. Could I post a bibliography with ISBN numbers and not find the books just mentioned? If you write to me, send me your email address, you will get the class notes. In the class notes is a bibliography. It will help you, because I'm not going to type all that stuff in. Sorry, but I will make it available to you. And also, I have a couple of documents that I can share with you in the event that you can't get a hold of these things. Mary Ishen gave me permission. That was a rhyme. Mary Ishen gave me permission to do the Sherbet and Spice chapter on baklava. And then I also got permission from the authors to do medieval Arab cookery. So there is a recipe or an entire chapter on Mamunia, East and West. I highly recommend that you read this article if you want to make Mamunia. There's different spelling of it in various sources. So thank you, Urta team. She just put in there the ISBN on Bountiful Empire and Sherbet and Spice. And I have those scanned and available. When you send me your email address, I will send that to you as well. I'll send you the whole, as long as the email will take it, that size of the document. So we are coming up on, it is 10 to 8. I want to open up the floor for questions. Anybody? Really? I wowed you that much? Yeah, this is pretty flaky.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
Actually, my biggest question, I think you answered it, but I missed it, is what is your email address? I'll send you my email address so you can send me all this wonderful information.
That would be helpful, wouldn't it? My email address, let me put it in the chat. It's my first name and last name at gmail.com. Here you go. Oh my God, the butter. Oh, I just love the filling in this. It is just so flavorful. Like my mouth is just like, hello. It's so happy. If you get a chance tomorrow, I'm teaching, I forget what time, baklava. And I'm going to go through some of the myths. Have I done any of the candies such as in albagi? Have you kept them from sugaring without the corn syrup crystallizer interrupter? Lemon juice. Lemon juice will disrupt the recrystallization. I think there's a couple other ways I don't remember, but that's primarily what I've done in terms of preventing it. More good books Urta team is posting. Yeah, all of those are wonderful. The Soup for the Khan was actually instrumental in helping me with some of the recipes that didn't really have explanation. And because of the Central Asian origins of a lot of Turkish food and Ottoman food. Oh, shoot, I posted it, I guess, only to one person. Sorry about that. Thank
That's
you,
okay.
folks.
I pinged you, so it was defaulting to you
Yeah,
replying.
okay.
I shared it out.
Thank you. I don't know why it did that, but occasionally it does that with Zoom. It like goes to one person. Maybe it's the last person who spoke or anyway. There is a lot of influence of, and you can even see Chinese influence on words. Like when you start talking about the definition or the etymology of baklava, how did they get to that word? There's a lot of theories, language theories, but they all go back to Central Asian and Mongol. So it really tells you that baklava was very different. It wasn't Arabic. At least it didn't start out Arabic. The Arabs may have absorbed it when the Turks brought it over, or they may have, just like they've done with Persian and many other cultures, but it's a little bit different. So we have a couple minutes left. Thank you for putting that in there, Urta team. And again, I just want to really say thank you to Urta team for her work in translating the Shirvani manuscript, and just in general, she's been super generous sharing her information. It's been a pleasure to get to know her, so I'm looking forward to having more fun and redacting the rest of the recipes. So we'll come back and teach again. I have taught, if you scroll up in the chat box, you'll see my email address. I have taught the making the candied peels. That was fun. And there's a few others, and I'm going to keep on teaching. So if you have anything that you want to learn, like I make manta. For those of you who don't know what manta is, it is a stuffed dough like a mini ravioli. It's like a ravioli, except it's stuffed with lamb and chickpeas and cinnamon. And oh,
Made those for my feast, for my Ottoman feast.
yeah, and it's made with it's served with a yogurt sauce with sumac, garlic and onions that are sautéed in butter. Oh yes, that's some heaven right there. I mean, that's some beautiful heaven. It's made into little packages, and then it's it's cooked and actually double boiler cooked. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent here. There's a lot of really fun recipes in the Ottoman cuisine genre, and I encourage you all to dip your toe in there.
And
Get
as
some
far
of
as the Ottoman recipes go, I travel all over the U.S. and teach at inter-kingdom events where we cook Ottoman recipes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just not the sweets so much.
Just nothing what?
Not the sweets so much.
A couple years ago, I led the 50-year feast for the laurels for the Middle Kingdom. And we did a Venetian Ottoman event, which, dear God, I wish the photographer had been able to get all the pictures. We got no pictures. We got one picture, and that was only of the tree, unfortunately, but it is what it is. That's okay. I think maybe it lives in people's memories who got to attend it. That was a great deal of fun. Boy, I want to do something like that again at that level. We had like, I don't know, 7 laurels and their teams take on recipes, and we spent well over a year planning. It was so much fun. If you guys want those recipes, you can reach out to me too for that. Just ask me. I'm probably gonna have to send these in separate emails because there's a lot of documentation. That's big files. There's a lot of images and stuff. So, but thank you for coming. I hope to see you all tomorrow if you can make it, and if not, Afiyet olsun, which means bon appetit.